Hello again. The next painting. So first of all, I've walked around for about, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half trying to find something that I like. So another tip for next time I do this to myself, already know where you want to go before you go, because otherwise you'll be wandering around like an idiot for ages. So yeah, you can see this time that I've got a much more sturdy pro setup here. So I've got nice tripod. It's a Manfrotto tripod, so it's a good one, nice and sturdy, shouldn't wobble about too much. I've managed to get my canvas on here working pretty well. It's pretty stable, it's not too bad. The only downside of this one is getting something to set up as a portrait sort of orientation. It's quite tricky. I think this is going to work, just mainly because I quite like working in portrait compositions every now and again. I've taken a quick shot on my camera, my phone camera, mainly as a bit of a viewfinder. I'm obviously going to be referencing all of this stuff whilst I'm here for colour information. This is more just to help me get everything set up in the frame nicely. Some people use manual viewfinders, like literally like a square cut out of a frame, and then you can sort of get things lined up nicely as you would like, but I find having a quick picture is pretty good as well. It's quite overcast, as you can see, not great, but there's some nice information and contrast in the clouds, so I'm going to try and get that in. So yeah, let's see how we go. So starting as I would usually do, just getting those rough shapes blocked out with some pencil lines, mainly using that photo that I took as reference for the beginning. It was at this point actually that I had a random visitor. So I think somebody was walking their dog, they were coming past, and he popped over to me and he said, "So you're just going to basically colour in all these bits that you've done in pencil?" And I was like, well, yeah, I guess that is what I'm going to do, because that, I mean, it sounds kind of reductive, but that is kind of what's happening. So this is where we are. Basically got like a rough block out of this scene in here. It's very, very rough at the moment. I was just trying to see if I could dial in some of the colours and things a little bit more nicely than I am doing at the moment. I mean, it's kind of getting there. I feel like there's maybe a chance that this could turn into something I'm proud of. There's something quite nice going on now. It's getting later, where the sun is starting to give us some nice rim lighting on some of the clouds, and so that's going to be I think that's going to be the thing I'm going to try and get. I'm going to try and get some of that information happening on the page as much as I can. But hey, yeah, here we go. Let's get the rest of it done. So I think at this point I was thinking I've got that rough sort of vague indication of the palette, and it was just about starting to define some of the lighter and darker elements in the scene to give it a bit of form. And I think you can see, like, at the time I was thinking I'd got the palette completely wrong. Well, not completely wrong, but it was pretty far off. But actually looking at this shot right now, if you look at some of the stuff in the foreground that's not the painting, some of those colours are pretty representative of the stuff that I was starting to mix. I was talking to an old school friend the other day that I'd bumped into and I hadn't spoken to for about 20 years. They also work as an artist, work in the movie industry. And I was talking to them about the fact that I was trying to do this sort of stuff. And he was saying, the main thing, you need to just not panic when it comes to doing a painting, because the amount of times that I've rescued something in the last 5 minutes when I thought it was going to be a complete disaster. I remember at the time thinking, yeah, that's a good point. I remember when that's happened to me in the past. And it does happen a lot. This one has been really difficult, and there have been a couple of times where I've been like, do you know what? We'll just scrap this one and I'll do another one another time. I feel like it's just about rounding a corner. I can see it changing. I mean, the nice thing is I've come out and it was super overcast. We've now got a bit of a sunset going on, kind of, and it's really changed the quality of the light to something that's a little bit more inspiring. It was a bit grey before. But yeah. So I've managed to capture what I think is a nice sort of level of light, sort of hitting the actual landscape. And now I think it's just I need to go in and see what I can do with this sky, because there's actually some really interesting stuff happening now, as you can see round about here. Yeah, there's some cool colours coming through. So now we need to see if we can put that back into the actual painting. I think quite often what I do with my paintings is try to find ways to create subtle colour gradients and in cool colour combinations, but with lots of intricate brush strokes, or just that idea of representing chaos in nature with lots of cool brush strokes, and not worry too much about being too precise, but just sort of get a vague idea as to what's happening in the scene. So it's like that sort of filtered version of reality that you have once you've been looking at it for a while through your own eyes. So it's around about here that you're going to start seeing me making some of those changes that I kept going on about with regards to the sky. Like, I knew it had this sort of warmth that wasn't there at the beginning. It was very bluish grey at the start, and some of these really nice warm tones had started to creep in, which made everything just feel a little bit more welcoming. And I wanted to capture that in here, so I started basically taking some of the colours that I was using in the landscape, some of the warmer tones, and started pushing them into the sky, but obviously keeping the brightness way higher, so that relationship between the sky acting as a light source over the rest of the image was still in place. And it was all done in about 2 minutes, but it made a huge difference in the right way. Right, I'm calling it there, mainly because it's getting really late and I could keep noodling on this for hours. It's gone okay, it's all right. It's got a few things going on in it that I quite like. There's a bunch of things I don't. Palette was really difficult to deal with, mainly because it was so overcast. Like, ideally the sun would have come out and I'd have got more shadows and light. So it was very diffuse and quite sort of flatly lit, but there's some interesting forms and there's some interesting colours going on. And I've done my best to try and get that down. So you can see this is what I've been staring at. You can see the sky's got a little bit more interesting. It's still pretty low contrast. So here we are. This is the finished article. Yeah, it's okay. I'm kind of happy with this one. It's a very strange evening light. It's very overcast, but there's a bit of colour poking through. And I think trying to get that level of subtlety was the thing that I was struggling with. It's one of the things that's slightly more difficult about being out here is getting some really nice sort of subtle colours being mixed with the gouaches, however you want to pronounce it. Working with slightly zingier colours is a little bit more straightforward. I mean, I kind of like some of the subtlety that's going on in here. But yeah, I think lots to sort of learn, lots to take away. Some of the mad things I did in the last couple of seconds actually ended up being some of the biggest wins. Definitely what I did with the sky was a massive help. At least the value relationship now between sky and ground feels a lot more successful than it did at the beginning. Maybe it'll grow on me. Maybe it'll grow on me as I look at it a little bit longer. Cool. Okay. Bye-bye.